All right. All right. Here we are. Welcome to Forward Future Live. It is Friday, August 29th, 2025. Today, I am joined by a co host. This is my partner at Forward Future, Nick Wentz. What's up, Nick? And you have no audio. You will get that sorted out in a second. So we have an amazing show for you prepared. We have three incredible guests, starting with Dr. Derya Unutmaz from he's a professor at the Jackson Laboratory. I've been following him a while on X, really pushing the envelope on using AI in medicine and healthcare and scientific discovery. Has been working closely with OpenAI when they drop new models, testing them out for healthcare use cases. Very interesting guy, big proponent of using AI for scientific discovery. So we're going to have him on as a guest first. Then we have Mihir Shukla, CEO of Automation Anywhere, thinking a lot about automating companies, the future of white collar work. He is at the forefront of it. So we get to talk to him, which will be awesome. Then last, we have Caleb Peffer, co-founder and CEO at Firecrawl, creating the future of how AI will interact with web content. They just raised the Series A. Surprisingly, I've been using Firecrawl for a long time, and not only myself, but Forward Future, my company, has also been using them. We're also going to be going over the biggest stories of the week. Nick, are you back? Do you have audio?
I'm back. We're in action here.
All right. Good to hear you. Good to hear you. Okay, let's just get right into the stories. Nick, kick us off.
Yeah, so Alex, if you could bring up my screen. So first things first, Nvidia reported earnings recently, as I'm sure you know, Matt. And I mean, besides being a money printing machine, they had another record quarter. But interestingly enough, a muted investor reaction. I think the stock actually dipped 2 to 3% post earnings. So the obvious culprit here is probably uncertainty with China. Um, Maybe questions about demand, future demand. I don't know, Matt. What's your read on this?
I think it's both of what you said. I think it's also maybe people are jaded. It's like, oh, these incredible numbers, no big deal. We've seen it before, quarter after quarter. I think the total growth rate has slowed down a little bit, but like when you get to these types of numbers, there's just no way to continue at that growth rate. So, like certainly it's going to be some of the restrictions that China is putting in place, right? They kind of informed all of their major AI companies stop buying US chips for security reasons. It might be that, but I think it's just a combination of a few different things.
Yeah, it's funny how quickly we get used to this. Let's talk about this $60 billion stock buyback. To me, this is a little boring. I mean, good way to make earnings per share look stronger, return value to investors, all that jazz. And I guess most importantly, actually, is this is Jensen signaling to the market, hey, the stock is undervalued. We have confidence. That's probably the most important bit here. But this is financial engineering. It's not innovation, right? Like, where is the new fabs, the R&D?
Yeah.
Let's put this money to work.
Yep.
But
Yep.
anyway,
This
I
feels
digress.
very similar to Apple in that way, right? I think at a certain point when you don't know what to do with all of your cash, you just buy back stock. It is a signal that you don't know what to do with the cash. It is a signal that you don't have anywhere to invest. But I don't know. They have to make shareholders happy, and this is part of that. So I hope it's not a broader signal that Nvidia just doesn't know what to do with their money. Obviously, there are a ton of ways to spend the money in the AI sector, building out new infrastructure. They're still outsourcing all of their chip production to TSMC and others. So there's just a ton they can do. We shall see. That this was like kind of the beginning of the end of Apple's innovation when we started seeing them do major buybacks. Obviously, just made the stock continue to go up, but it does give a little hint as to what the company might be thinking.
Yeah, and we'll move on in a second here, but last comment would be it's potential that like there's potential that Jensen kind of saw this happening. He had some foresight that investor reaction would be a little muted, and so took a proactive measure to do a big stock buyback. But anyway, we'll see how this plays out. Let's move on to the next story, which is near and dear to all of our hearts. We've been having a lot of fun with this. You've made a couple of videos recently about this one. Um, and this, to me, like, this is not about creating finished imagery, right? This is like the true power where this model really shines is the editing, the manipulation of images. So what do you think? Photoshop killer or not quite?
Close. It is by far the most impressive image editing model that I've ever used. So we're talking about Nano Banana, aka Gemini 2.5 Flash image gen. Really incredible images coming from it. Since I've published the 2 videos that I've published about it, there have been numerous use cases where I've just been blown away. One of them is you can give Nano Banana a screenshot of Google Maps, for like a top-down 2D screenshot, and say, show me what it would look like if a person were here. And it just creates it. And it's incredible. And you can also say, show me what it would be like if a person were here in the 1800s. And it would do that. And it's like almost like a time machine. And it is really incredible. Producer Alex made a number of funny images about me, which I'm still trying to emotionally get over.
I think we have one of those right here.
Is that right? You have to show it though? Okay, fine. I see. And so if you're watching right now, stick around, because later we're going to be doing a competition where we want submissions from you all, from whoever's watching, about Nano Banana. We're going to give you 2 base images, one of myself, but more importantly, one of producer Alex. And if you could do something funny with it, we'll tell you more later.
All right, let's move on to the next story here. So OpenAI had a release. The real-time API is officially out of beta and ready for your production voice agents. We're also introducing GPT Real-Time, our most advanced speech-to-speech model yet, plus new voices and API capabilities. So what's your read on this one? Is this should we all be excited about this, or is this more or less an expected release, an expected next step?
I think this is underappreciated, even by myself. I increasingly, especially over the last few weeks, have become incredibly bullish on voice AI as the interaction layer between humans and AI. More so than having glasses, like more so than anything else. And in fact, I think AirPods have the opportunity to really dominate as the interaction device for humans and AI. I love voice. I think it's such a great way to interact with AI. And now developers have cutting edge voice AI that they can build into their own applications. So the more that we see voice interfaces, I think the better. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I think the enterprise implications of this are pretty significant. Assistance, customer support, accessibility tools, even. Anywhere humans talk to machines. And the more time that goes on, the better this technology gets. I myself am using it as well to interact with AI almost on a daily basis now.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, did you see that video of the Taco Bell AI rollout?
Is that the no, tell me about it.
So it didn't go well. Let's just say that some frustrated customers at the drive-through not getting their drink orders and such. We can pull it up later, but let's move on to the next story, and then we're going to bring on our first guest. So, in response to Elon Musk's actual response to someone else, where Elon says, there will be universal high income, not merely basic income. Everyone will have the best medical care, food, home, transport, and everything else. Sustainable abundance. So Hader responds, Elon Musk says, as robots replace human labor, UHI will cover everyone's needs. What's your take on this? It's good to see people talking about this. I think it's an important conversation to be had.
Yeah, I am very optimistic about the future. Elon Musk historically has not been with regards to artificial intelligence. I think more recently he has become much more optimistic. I like to see this. I like to think that there's going to be hyperabundance in the future when intelligence costs go to nearly zero. I'm very excited about that. There does seem to be a wide spectrum of takes on whether we're going to have this optimistic future or a very dystopian future. We'll see. I again like to be optimistic. We're going to touch on that with a couple of our guests, including the one we're about to bring on. So why don't we just do that? Why don't we bring on Derya, our first guest? So this is Dr. Derya Unutmaz from the Jackson Laboratory, professor there, just really doing incredible work with AI plus medicine. Derya, welcome to the show.
Hello, pleased to be here. How are you?
Hey, Derya. I've been following you on Twitter for a while. This is the first time we're meeting, but you are a fantastic follow. If anybody is not following him, please do. It's at Derya TR_ on Twitter. We'll drop that in the chat. I'm really excited to chat with you because I think you are optimistic as well. We were just talking about optimism. So when you've been deep in medicine, deep in research for a while, when did you start to see this kind of new wave of artificial intelligence? And then like, when did you come to the realization that it had the potential to really change medicine?
Yeah, first of all, really great to be here. I've been following your channel for a very long time too, so it's a fantastic AI channel. I get a lot of my news from here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been involved in AI for a very long time, actually. I started getting interested early 90s. I read this book from Ray Kurzweil, The Age of Intelligent Machines, which had a great impact on me. Of course, later on, his book on singularity, which really kind of predicted everything that's happening right now. So they had great influence and followed Marvin Minsky. I would recommend his book, Society of the Mind, which is like unbelievable blueprint of AI, I think. Of course, as ChatGPT came out, started using it, I think like third or fourth day after it came out in November 2022. I was very excited. And then at that point, I could see the path, actually. I think most people didn't really care about it. They said, well, it's not very good. It's hallucinating and so on. And, a lot of criticism. But once the path opens, you can see how things are going to evolve and eventually mature to a point where it will have tremendous impact. And I think that's the point that we are here now. We start to see that last year. For me, another turning point was the O1 model from ChatGPT, because I think that was the first really reasoning model. And I remember actually I had an early access from ChatGPT, and I got emotional when I saw the response from O1, which is actually somewhat nothing compared to what we have now with GPT-5 and thinking. Right. So this is going to get better and better. And I truly believe that not only because it's my professions, the greatest impact of AI is going to be on medicine and science and biomedicine, mainly for one simple reason. I think there's nothing more complex than biology. Everything underneath is less complex, and so our brains are not equipped to make sense out of it. There are trillions of different parts, and incredible amount of things are happening. But for the first time, we could see that we're going to get a handle to it. And once we get a handle into biology, then it's unbelievable future.
Yeah. And like, generally, like with your colleagues, with your peers, do you feel the overall sentiment is positive, is optimistic, or is it more apprehensive? Because I know a lot of doctors in particular are saying, okay, well, now they're going to, my patients are going to Dr. ChatGPT and not necessarily getting the correct answers all the time. So like in your industry, what are you seeing more broadly?
Yeah, I mean, if you asked me this question last year, I would have said it's terrible right now, because I think even when GPT-4o came out, people were still very, very skeptical, both on the science part as well as in the healthcare medical part. In a way, it's understandable because I might be a major outlier here in terms of embracing and accepting AI, because I was waiting for it for decades. But for most people, especially in fields like medicine and science, and if you're a professor, now you have a model that's as good as you are. I said that for GPT-5 thinking model, it probably is even better. And so that feels like a direct threat to your existence almost. So I think part of the resistance was that, and then people were trying to cope. Well, it's still not good enough. It still can't do that. It still hallucinates. Yes, there were problems, but you could see that all of those are going to be fixed. And I think we are now at a point that most people cannot refuse it. I know a lot of doctors are using ChatGPT. Probably the use is going to go up with GPT-5. My scientist colleague, it's a day and night difference between last year and this year. Even compared to early this year, people now begin to accept, wow, this is unbelievable. If we don't use it, we're just going to be left behind. In fact, it was used so much that NIH, National Institute of Health, had to change the rules of grant submission because apparently somebody wrote 40 grants using AI and submitted to NIH. And that was
I think I read about that.
A little bit overdoing it, so they limited to 6. But AI writes better grants than we do. It proposes better ideas, better hypotheses. I share it all the time. So I think it's now beginning. People are beginning to see that. Well, there is no escape from here. We gotta embrace it, or we'll be obsolete.
So in addition to writing grants, I know you're using AI in your medical research. Can you walk us through the specifics of that and any use cases, I guess, most recently that you've been surprised about, delighted about?
Yeah, I mentioned about this on my OpenAI video as well. I experienced what I would call Move 37 moment. For those who don't know, it's the famous move, the Go move in the AI versus world champion. AI AlphaGo made this incredible move that nobody foresaw that. Like, wow, this is amazing. So I had that moment in actually probably one or two cases where we had performed an experiment about 2 years ago, and this was a very interesting result. But there were conflicting data. So there were a couple of experiments, and one experiment said, well, this is probably what this is suggesting. This was about immune system, about improving our immune cells against cancer, and so on. So we just couldn't reconcile those. Eventually, we came up with one idea, and we tested that, and that worked, and that sort of reduced the puzzle a little bit, but still remained a puzzle. And so I actually uploaded the figure of those experiments, and it was just a simple figure, the result. And after a couple of minutes, GPT-5, this is the thinking model, came out with this unbelievable insight. Not only it understood the experiment, actually most models are able to do that now, but it suggested both the experiment that we came up later, a few months later. But in addition, it came up with an idea that when I saw, wow, why didn't I think of that? It was so amazing that I became emotional almost. And so actually, we're gonna do that experiment, and hopefully we'll publish the result. This is really mind-boggling. Just another example how AI is going to facilitate and accelerate science in a dramatic way. Of course, we're able to do data analysis now. I just uploaded 1,000 different metabolites, hundreds of patients, thousands of different data sets. It took us about a month to analyze that data. This was about 2 years ago. And, GPT-5, again, did it in a matter of minutes. Came up with exact same results, and actually additional things that we haven't thought about. So month became minutes. And then another case where I uploaded an experiment that we had done. The experiment had taken about a month period because our biology experiments take a long time. And so, we obtain results. Of course, we can't predict everything, so we never can perform a perfect experiment. Things just happen unexpectedly. So we have to run a lot of experiments. But if it takes a month to get the result, then another month, so it takes a long time to do biology. And so I said, okay, here is the experiment. Can you predict what would happen over this 1 month period? And this was a very complex experiment. Again, some immune cells, some cancer cells, they're genetically engineered. All kinds of things are happening. We're tuning it. So, what happens to tumor, what happens to immune cells. And so it was just incredible. Predict pretty much like 90% of the output of the experiment. Of course, can't do 100%. But then it also pointed out, like, if you had designed this experiment like this, it would have been like that. So, and if we could do that, rather than running 1,000 experiments, I can reduce that to few experiments. So that would save me years of lifetime. I can simulate biology. I can begin to simulate at least part of it, and then start to validate the portions that look great. So, and this is going to get better. And so one of the things I'm very passionate about is to create what we call virtual cells. So eventually, I think we will come to a point where we will have a complete biological cell with all the data it has, that will be able to run the experiment in silico using AI. I mean, we're going to need lots of data and lots of compute, by the way. People say, okay, well, we have a lot of compute. No, we don't have enough compute for biology. But I'm absolutely sure we're going to get there.
All right, you said a lot there, and I want to touch on a couple things. One, the acceleration of biomedical research is incredible. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a large portion of what researchers spend their time on is literally applying for the grants, writing the applications, making sure they're accurate and high quality, and applying. And all of that time is not spent towards actual research. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the grants, but grants is a major portion. Some calculations show that about 30% of scientists' time is spent writing grants and then improving it, and so on and so forth. I can give you an example. A grant that used to take me and my colleagues 2-3 months to write, now we could do it in less than a week. Or a couple of days if I push it. And it's not just writing the grant per se; it's coming up with the ideas, and it's not missing about what's in the field. I'm early testing a model from Google called Google Co-Scientist, and this model is just unbelievable in the sense that it actually creates hypotheses, the questions to ask, and it does it in an agentic way. So it sort of ranks them. And you get ideas, you get aims that you didn't think about. And I'm in this field for 30 plus years. And so it improves the quality of the science. It improves the speed at which you can apply for grants. It improves the speed at which you can write papers. Writing papers also take a long time, how to put things. And then, you don't want to miss something that was published before. People will get upset about it. You have to think about that. You have to update yourself like 100 times a day because there's so many papers getting published. It's impossible. Those are just a little bit of, it saves time on data analysis, experimental plans, and so much that it's just mind-blowing.
So you mentioned you're using a model that is not public yet from Google. I know you've been a huge proponent of GPT-5, which is a generalized model. Then you have things like the Alpha series of models, like AlphaFold, where they're more specialized models. What is your take on whether the best models for biomedical research are going to be more verticalized, specialized models like an Alpha series, or are they going to be kind of bitter lesson, scale up a generalized model like GPT-5? Do you have a sense of where you think the world is going?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict what will happen in a couple of years, but I think it's going to be a combination of both. In fact, when AlphaFold 3 came out, I started a community on X just dedicated to that, and then it's actually involves most of these specialized biological models, which I call bio AI models. So I think we probably need both at this time because for example, AlphaFold is a very specialized type of a model, which it tries to figure out the 3D structure of proteins. And there's a very specialized, very intense computation going out there, or others that look at binding of small molecules to. So you have to have an understanding of that 3D structure of the proteins. Protein dynamics, molecular dynamics. So those are extremely specialized conditions. I mean, I'm not saying that one day we may not be able to do all of that in a what's called LLM. It's not an LLM anymore because now it has image, it has tools, it has video. But we're probably not there yet. Also, very importantly, these models have to be trained with specialized data sets. GPT-5 knows pretty much everything about biology that's already published, but it doesn't have that information about 3D structures of proteins, or what happens if I knock out the gene in a cell and how the cell will. So one of the things that we like to do is to sort of create fine-tuned models, maybe feeding in a lot of data, because the data is constantly coming in, and that is lacking. And then the models also have to have a very, very big memory because it has to hold all that information.
And Derya, you said you're fine-tuning models. Are you fine-tuning the GPT-5s of the world? Or and I also wanted to ask you about this. You recently said Kimi K2 is a good model. And that opens up, hey, are we talking about open source might be a good candidate for biomedical research? Are you fine-tuning that? Are you running it locally? It's like, how do you think about open versus closed source, and then also how you're fine-tuning them?
Yeah, I mean, for now, I'm using more. Actually, I use Google a lot for that. I think it's really great, Gemini models for fine-tuning purposes. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't tried the open source models. I haven't done any local type of because it requires a lot of effort. And I mean, I can do it. The problem we have now is the time. Like, there's so much you can do. I'm actually very much into coding. I did my first program in basic language 45 years ago. I even coded in assembly language. This is like ancient news, or in Lisp. But I just, now it's so easy to do, but you just don't have enough time to dedicate yourself to that. I think others are working on this. Definitely, open source models will be also very, very important, because some of this has to be local. There's proprietary data and confidential data and so on. But one way or the other, and the problem is that we also need a lot of computation. It's not so cheap right now. Maybe we'll get there if Nvidia comes out with new models and lowers the price a bit, because you need a lot of GPUs.
Yeah. So all of this progress, I can't help but think about AGI. I think I heard a quote from you saying that you think there's a high likelihood that AGI will happen this year. And so first of all, is that true? Is that your prediction? And then more importantly, I'm curious to get your perspective on what that means for healthcare, what it means for medicine.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's probably reached or about to be reached internally in some of the companies. I won't give names. But I think people will whenever I say that, people will say, well, how do you define AGI? So I think there's a lot of confusion there. The way I define AGI is by levels. So it's not like we reach AGI and then everything stops evolving. That might be ASI, like super intelligence, and we don't know what happens after that, or we don't even know what super intelligence means. But AGI is going to be different levels. I think this year we'll definitely reach basic AGI because we're very close to it. What we really need is memory, so that the model can actually learn in the context, right? So
been saying that. Absolutely agree, Derya.
I think you tweeted about that too. It's really what's missing, and I'm pretty sure they're able to do that internally at OpenAI or Google, but it requires a lot of compute. So they're really They probably may not release it this year. I'm not sure because there's going to be so much demand, and how are you going to get the compute for that? But this is going to happen, whether end of this year or early next year, definitely. And then it's going to keep evolving, right? So through agentic systems, and especially as we get more different multimodal data sets. Like, I think we're probably very close to AGI on imaging, with Nano. Probably the real banana is the AGI version of it. Because what is AGI, right? So it's artificial general intelligence. It means that it can look at something and learn about it, and then it can reason for something it didn't know before. That's how our brain works in terms of human intelligence. Although, we actually, our brains also work a lot with what we already know. There's only a small portion that we can figure things out that we never were exposed. So I think, we're getting there. Video imaging, they're reaching there. And I think, GPT-5 thinking or pro model per se, I think is AGI in the sense that, locally. But if it has more memory, can learn, we'll get there. And then, as I said, it's just going to keep getting better and better. Maybe the next level will be you'll tell AI, okay, so here's your task. That's going to take about a day or 2 days. Because the basic AGI will still need to interfere maybe every hour or so. The next version will just go and do its job for a day or two, and then the next version will probably work for a week, and then next one for a month, and then we'll come back. Okay, I already solved everything, and so here's the solution.
Yeah, and like I understand your journey to becoming or being kind of on the forefront of AI plus medicine. You've been interested for so long. What do you think it's going to take to get like all of your colleagues, your industry in general, to start adopting it at a much more rapid clip? When do you think AI is going to be the default for doctors, for researchers? Because it feels like we're heading in that direction, but we're not quite there yet. Is it a function of education? Is it a function of just exposure to the tools? What do you think it's going to take to get there?
I think two things are going to happen, and it might be different for medicine, for science, for academia. Because I think, one issue is that for the medicine, there's still regulations, liability. So you have to have a very, very high standard. And, I think we're getting proof of that. In fact, I post on Twitter now. I say it's unethical for doctors not to use AI. And it's going to be a malpractice, because it's like saying, I don't want to use a stethoscope because that's not cool. I'm just going to put my head and listen to the
cheating
heart.
on my natural ears.
Yeah, I don't want to cheat on diagnosing the patient, but that's not the point of medicine, right?
Right.
You need to have perfect diagnosis. And in America alone, there are 12 million misdiagnoses every year, and about 400,000 people die or severely injured because of errors of diagnosis or treatment. That's unbelievable amount, right? So once we see that, once the patients see that, geez, GPT-5 gives me better answer than my doctors, they're going to demand for this. Like, why aren't you doing that? So that it's going to be a little bit of a forceful adaptation on that side. And then, on the science side, any scientist who doesn't use AI is going to be left behind. Like, how can you compete with me when I'm using AI to write the grant in 2 days and then do my analysis in 1 hour? You're going to spend months of your life. You're never going to compete with it. And then I'm going to have better ideas too. So in fact, people are just flocking into it. They realize, wow, I have to do that. I'm not going to have a job anymore. This is for the established doctors and scientists. I'm a bit worried about the newcomers, the junior guys. It's not going to be so easy for them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Derya, there's been a lot of talk about junior engineers not being able to find jobs because senior engineers with much more experience plus artificial intelligence are insanely productive. I've spoken to multiple enterprise leaders, Aaron Levy, Matt Garman from AWS, and they say that's ridiculous. If like somebody comes and the younger generation tends to be more leaned into artificial intelligence, like, why wouldn't I hire them? They're going to be cheaper. They're going to be very hardworking. and they're going to be ready to use AI at the job. But you're saying maybe that's not what you're seeing in the medical profession. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it might be different for engineering or for computation, because these people are naturally, they learn to use AI. So these software engineers. So if you are, if you're inclined, if you know how to program, and then if you just do that as a vibe coding, you're going to have a tremendous advantage. The problem is that everyone's going to have the same advantage, right? So how are you going to discriminate yourself? So that's one problem. But there might still be enough jobs for those that embrace the AI. The issue in the other fields, like it's not just medicine, but lawyers or academic. So in academia, we recruit PhD students, or then who become what we call postdocs. They come in and they do a couple of years. So I mean, I have to be intellectually honest about that. So I'm saying, why do I need a PhD student or a postdoc? Because AI is providing all of the information, all of the experimental. All I need is a very good technician who can actually do the experiment, who has good hands, who has good technical abilities. So that person becomes more valuable for me. And this is going to be true for most people. I have other colleagues. They say, well, I realize I don't need a postdoc anymore, on this and that, because the postdoc means that it has to come up with its own idea, has to be able to analyze its data, it has to be able to design the experiment. When AI is able to do all that, then the senior person, like a professor, says, well, you're more expensive. Why do I need to recruit you? And then same thing might happen in the medical field, although that might take a little bit more time, because there's still a demand for doctors. But it will come to a point where you're going to saturate. A more senior, more experienced doctor can now use AI agents and see 10 times more patients at the same time, right? So because
Wow.
You probably need more nurse practitioners than doctors, because those are the people who are handling the patients. And so it's just going to be difficult for the junior people, even if they can find a job. They're not going to make the same income. So this is really important. And I said, again, Nenex, this is controversial. I said, look, you think twice if you want to go to career in medicine. I mean, if you're passionate, go for it. But you're gonna be incurring, I don't know, $500,000 debt going to medical school, and just because that doctors make a lot of money, so you can pay that back. But if that doesn't happen anymore, that's just a wasted time and money. Same with PhDs. If you're passionate about biology, go into biology. Biology is going to be fantastic. But why are you going to waste time 4, 5, 6 years in a PhD when science is moving so fast that everything you do is going to be obsolete? Just go into it and try to do it. So it's hard to predict, but I'm having a hard time finding solutions for these things.
Yeah, Derya, there's certainly kinks to be worked out, right? But overall, I've seen you paint this optimistic, hopeful picture. I think Matt and I both share that optimism with you. But what does give you hope? Is it a world where we can rapidly cure disease and reverse aging or stop aging? What gives you the most hope about the future?
Yeah, I'm extraordinarily optimistic. I might be more optimistic than you guys even. And I've actually always been like that. It's just that in exponential curves, there's a period where things take a long time until we get to the inception point, and we just arrive there. Because I'm just focusing on the big picture. Of course, on an individual level, some people will suffer, they will lose their jobs, or they're going to have a hard time. But let's look at it globally, overall, to the humanity. And imagine a day when every disease is treated. And that day is about 10 years away,
That's so
conservative.
exciting.
And not only that, imagine a day when we can reverse aging, and that's about 15 years away, right? So you are 67 years old, and biologically you return back to 2030. This is not science fiction. Actually, people think that, well, how can you do that? Yes, you can do that, because that's how the biology works anyway. It constantly renew itself. It's just the program shuts down at some point. We have to figure it out to reverse it, and that will definitely happen. So no disease, no aging, and then you're going to have robots that are probably doing most of your work. I'm not just talking about your cooking or whatever, but all kinds of things that they can help you with. That, and then the third, and maybe more importantly, AI is so democratizing, right? So we only focus on our own bubble. Like we're doing pretty well in America, at least a portion of the people, but the rest of the world, people are suffering, because they don't have access to knowledge, they don't have access to healthcare, they don't know what to do. There's not enough doctors, or this and that. Now you have a doctor that's like a Harvard graduate in the middle of nowhere, and so that world to me is an amazing world. It's like a golden age. And things become more abundant, things become much more cheaper. If you don't have to spend any money to healthcare and education, and the food becomes very cheap because the robots are producing, you actually don't even need much money, and you can focus on things that really matter to you. For humans, for our the meaning of our lives are not our jobs. This is an artificial creation that happened in the last few hundred years. Humans never evolved to do jobs like certain hours, right? So we just hunted when we needed, when we were hungry, and then we found a place to sleep and stuff. That's how we evolved. And I'm not saying that we should be a hunter-gatherer again, but we could enjoy lots of other things if you don't have to worry about the basic needs, and worry about our health and so on. So I don't know how one can argue against that optimism. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, as you've said, we share your optimism. I appreciate your optimism of the future. Derya, thank you so much for joining us today. Open invitation. You come back anytime you want to talk about this awesome future with health, with medicine. Really appreciate it, Derya. So you can find Derya at Derya, DERYATR_. We'll drop that in the chat. There it is. Derya, thank you so much. Anytime you want to come back.
Thank you very much. Have a good show.
Right, see you later. All right. I love it. I love the optimism.
Yeah, so good.
So we have a few news stories to go over. You want to tee us up, Nick?
Let's do it. All right. So from the feed. All right. So let me read this, and then we'll get into it. So excited to share our first Microsoft in-house models. MAI Voice 1 and MAI 1 Preview. Details on how you can test below. This is from the CEO of Microsoft AI, Mr. Suleiman. So they're going into the solo game. What's interesting is I don't think this got a lot of coverage, but pretty big story. Obviously, some kind of risk mitigation play. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, we've heard over the last few weeks and the few months about their friction with the relationship with OpenAI. We'll just call it friction, right? OpenAI, you've seen move into more and more spaces that Microsoft dominates. Software creation, work, Excel, like all of these things become more and more obvious that OpenAI can move into and potentially compete with Microsoft. We've known their talks. They've wanted to go. They've wanted to go for profit, and Microsoft was kind of in control of that decision. And so it seems inevitable that Microsoft should and now did create a foundation model. This is their own in-house foundation model, and it's two. It's voice and kind of the text-based. By the way, why hasn't Apple done this? Like, it seems every other company is capable. You just throw a ton of money at the compute, you throw a ton of money at hiring the best people, and then you build a model and then you iterate from there. There's just something culturally missing at Apple that they haven't been able to do this yet, right?
Ooh, I want to talk about Apple. We have something lined up for Apple, but I totally agree. It's a mystery.
Okay. this is a great play, right? This is the right decision. They should be building their own model. They're going to have much more control over what it is, over what data goes into it, over their future, even though, that technically they have full control over OpenAI's technology. But, there's some weird nuances there, and you don't want another company having the core, like building the core technology for the foreseeable future. Microsoft, Satya's the 4D, 5D chess player he is, knew this, has probably been working on this for a while with the help of Mustafa.
100%. Well said. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have friend of the show, Yuchen Jin. All the big labs pre-train on the same internet, but each has a secret sauce. OpenAI, Reddit, XAI, Twitter, Google, YouTube, Meta, Instagram, and Facebook. I like this line at the end here. In the end, models mirror the cultures of the social media they grew up on. Do you buy into this? Is there some truth to this?
Yeah. So again, friend of the show, Yuchen. Fantastic poster, by the way. Go follow him on Twitter if you're not already following him. So I get it. Like OpenAI has their close relationship with Reddit. XAI is literally Twitter. Google has YouTube, although I don't know if they're necessarily training on YouTube videos. I'm not sure. And then Meta, of course, like you have to assume they're training on Instagram and Facebook. And so, yeah, that's their differentiation. I've been talking about this for a while, that the true differentiation is going to be the data that is behind auth, behind paywalls, and that data is going to become increasingly valuable over time, especially if it's kind of like self-creating, if it's user-generated content and it's just continuous. Once you have a way of filtering out the signal to noise, then you just have this nonstop fire hose of incredible data. But also he does make a point. Like, it's funny how he said it, by the way, that the models mirror the cultures of the social media they quote unquote grew up on. I really like that framing of it. Yeah, I think it's certainly that, but it's also like the decisions they made to filter out kind of the public web pre-training. It's also how they decide the different algorithms to use. And surprisingly, I think such a big part of this is actually the system message that they come up with. And so, like, as you saw, XAI, they had a couple, let's say, incidents where one of their employees inserted a single line into the system message and completely changed the personality of the model. And so, like, almost more so than any other factor, it's the system message that changes the personality of the model.
To me, that's probably the most important point. I would have thought that there's a lot of scraping happening anyway, and although there's probably some behind the scenes proprietary data, but I mean, all these companies are accessing all of these digital properties to a certain extent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Everything's public. Everything that is public, they're already training on.
Is being scraped.
Vast corpuses of data that all of the models are trained on as a base. And then, of course, like as Yuchen said, part of the secret sauce is finding the data that is not. And it's usually through acquisition, partnership, or ownership, right? So that's what we're seeing on all of these. And that's why if you're not one of these companies, how do you compete? I don't know. I mean, let's talk about Apple. We've talked about Apple a lot. They don't necessarily have UGC. They don't have user-generated content. So where would they get their content from? Obviously, they have enough money to buy or partner license any content that they want, but they don't have a kind of the flywheel effect of just self-generating content.
Yeah. And knowing Apple, they're not going to access their users' text messages. So there's really no good source.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this next story. We have a launch from Anthropic. So Anthropic says we've developed Claude for Chrome, where Claude works directly in your browser and takes actions on your behalf. We're releasing it at first as a research preview to 1,000 users so we can gather real-world insights on how it's used. This is classic Anthropic, taking a safe approach here, making sure that something is ready for a general release. I read that Anthropic's own team exposed that prompt injection attacks, where you're essentially hiding code in pages, tricks the AI, and it worked 23 or over 23% of the time. So maybe not quite ready for a general release, but they're taking precautionary steps here, doing it the right way, it seems.
Yeah, and this is actually really interesting when we bring on our next couple guests, because it's very related. But basically, the AI agents are infiltrating the web faster than I think we realize, and they are going to be browsing on our behalf more and more. And I like this. I actually got early access. I haven't had a chance to test it yet. I am going to be testing it. I think of course, Perplexity, their Comet product, which I have used and have really switched to. So it'll be interesting to see the differences between them, building an extension in Chrome versus building a fork of Chromium and actually having your own browser. It'll be interesting to see what the limitations are of the former. But I like this play. Having your AI agent browse the web on your behalf, but having it hosted in the cloud, there's always going to be limitations, specifically with authentication. It just makes everything more difficult with trying to log into websites, paying. And so when it's all based on your browser, the browser that you're already using, all your passwords are already in there. You can have it jump in mid workflow, which you can't do in the cloud. I just think that's the right approach, and I'm excited to try it out.
Yep, absolutely. Agreed. Well, I think we are ready for our next guest. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So really excited to bring on the next guest. This is Mihir Shukla. He is the CEO of Automation Anywhere. They do enterprise automation. Mihir, welcome to the show. Oh, I think you're muted. Hello, hello.
And you would think after COVID, I would have figured that out. Glad to be here.
No,
Not the first audio
we still
issue
struggle
we've
with
had.
it, so don't even worry.
Yeah.
Literally in
Nice
this
to see you.
episode, we're struggling with it, so not a problem at all. Mihir, good to see you again.
Likewise.
Really excited to talk to you, especially because you are at the forefront of automating work. I have a bunch of questions to ask you, but I want to start with you believe that up to 80% of work can be done through automation. And so where are we today, and what technologies, what innovations are needed to bridge the gap between where we are today and getting to that 80%?
Yeah. So I think it's 40 to 80% varies by function, of course. And 40 to 80% is either fully autonomous with no human in the loop, or it is AI assisted. Again, varies by function. But what it means is it's a dramatic transformation of the work as we know it. In many cases, the technologies are here and they're continuously evolving, sometimes every week, every month. What is the biggest challenge we all have is to reimagine these possibilities, that it is now possible. We operate today in a post World War II mindset where there are departments, and the departments are organized by functions and capabilities, and we operate in silos. And what AI is making us question is, if now capabilities can come partially from human, partially from AI, and it could come from anywhere, and you can dynamically compose those, what is the best way for us to reimagine how we are organized, how work happens? And so those are bigger challenges than technology. Being a technologist, we always go to technology, but the change is the harder part than technology.
Yeah, and okay, so I think, when we spoke last time, you said that you're seeing smaller teams be more effective with AI.
Yeah.
I spoke to AWS CEO Matt Garman, and he echoed the same sentiment, that what he's seeing, especially with the advent of this new generative AI wave, smaller teams are much more effective. Now, in your mind, does smaller teams mean less teams also, so you have less employees overall? And or is it, no, we're actually hiring, and the humans that are on our team are just so much more effective, we get so much higher return on our dollar? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So smaller team for sure, but I don't think that's an AI specific thing. I think that has always been true in enterprises, that the smaller teams produce better results. But if anything, AI has brought it in focus. The I think the way this transition is happening, yes, I'm answering your question about number of employees. I think a question for that is this the best world you can imagine? Is the current world the best world you can imagine? And is this all the ideas we have? Because if this is the best world and these are best ideas, then any technology will make it better, faster, cheaper, more effective. So you will require less employees. So if your answer is one, then yes, it will take less employees. For the sake of our children, I hope this is not the best world we can imagine. We can imagine much better world, and there are more ideas we have. And then to chase all of them, we are going to need more people. The best information we have tells us we will require 11 million new roles. This is part of the World Economic Forum study, and 9 million roles will be impacted. Now, in a perfect world, I mean, that's not like 11 million people waiting on some island waiting for a job. So in a perfect world, this 9 million people should take the 11 million job, and we'll still be looking for 2 million more people that we can't find. So in a sense, it's a reskilling challenge. But that's at macro level. Different people will experience this transformation differently from everybody's unique viewpoint. And I think we'll have to understand that all of them are right at the same time, because not everybody understands at a macro level. They understand the world from their viewpoint. And I think we have to be cognizant of that fact.
And Mihir, I love how you frame this, which is the question, is this the best world we can imagine? And what that tells me is a few things. One, if it isn't, and I don't think it is, there's always room for improvement. The pie is growing. So although each employee is going to be hyper productive all of a sudden, that doesn't mean the total universe of problems to solve is static. It's not staying the same. We have more problems we can solve. There are problems where previously the economics of solving that problem were not favorable and we just ignored it. And so not only are we going to be able to solve this long tail of problems, but there are also problems that maybe we didn't even think were possible to solve. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. But I think that societal transition that is required to make that journey is where more focus is required by the government, by the CEOs, by the education institutes, because it's a significant transition.
Yeah. And so Balaji said something, and I've been thinking about this quite a bit. He said it a few weeks ago. He said AI is probably going to be middle to middle in the kind of the problems that it solves, and then humans are going to be on the end, because AI just is not capable, at least for the foreseeable future, to handle workflows completely end to end. There needs to be a human in the loop. Is that what you're seeing at Automation Anywhere with your clients?
I might disagree. I'm just hearing based on what you're saying. I'm sure there is more nuance to what you said. But take an example. So let's get a specific example. For many of our customers, customer service, 40% of customer service at this point, it is autonomous with no human in the loop. It is true for Automation Anywhere as well, by the way. And we sell complex enterprise AI software, one of the most state of the art. So what I'm pointing out is I'm not selling widgets. So the customer service is not simple. And yet 40% of my customer service request is with no human in the loop. And the beauty of this, Matt and Nick, is that we offer our customers ability to talk to us. We did not take it away. We just said both options are available. And customers chose, based on their nature of the question, which way they want to go. And it was transformative for almost everybody. 40% of the cases gets responded within seconds. Everybody's happy. the 60% of the cases where people have to handle, the satisfaction on that went significantly higher because now people were focused on things that mattered most. And so CSAT is up, the response times up, everything is better. So this is an example. You will have processes with no human in the loop. Think of manufacturing plant. I have visited various our customers' manufacturing facilities, size of a football stadium, and it is fully autonomous, run by only 20 people. We are not quite there yet, but we have seen it in other parts of the world how that happens. You will increasingly go in that direction so that you can produce amazing things and creative things and millions of things like manufacturing does. Full autonomous wherever possible, assisted where it adds value.
So you mentioned the customer service use case. I'm curious where you at Automation Anywhere are seeing the most traction, and what other use cases are customers getting a lot of value out of?
So we have customers, 5,000 plus customers in over 90 countries across 18 industries. So the answer to is that it is being useful across every single industry for every single knowledge worker. And that's not surprising because that's what AI does. But let's take an example. So customer service is a great place. Take another example of one of our customer, Petrobras, which is in oil and gas. We did a work for them where in 3 weeks, they were able to save $120 million. Now, if somebody told me this, I wouldn't believe it because in 3 weeks, you can barely get a project plan done. But this underscores what we are talking about imagining a better world. Where is it possible? Yes. We could recompute taxes for them for the entire, they pay 64 billion range of taxes, very large tax bill. The fact that tax laws exist, as complicated as they are, and the fact that you could recompute all of it and find all anomalies and fix it within few weeks and refile all the paper through AI agents is a completely different way to operate. And it was possible. It's possible. This happened maybe a year ago, so it has been possible for a year, if not more.
And so, Mihir, you are obviously very bullish on automation. You're saying not only up to 40 to 80% of all tasks can be automated. I'm sure you saw this. There was an MIT study about a week and a half ago that said 95% of enterprise pilots are failing. And I assume you're not seeing that, but you tell me, what do you think, what are you seeing in terms of pilot to conversion to production success rate is? And what do you think that 95% of companies, let's assume that is true, what were they getting wrong?
So I read that report, and it's interesting how everybody focuses on 95%. I read it completely differently. The fact that there is 5% where there is amazing returns. And where is that 5%? And if you look at that, it is virtually all the things we do it for our customers. It is the back office. It is the end-to-end processes. It's autonomous enterprise. It's finance. All the places that are listed is where the returns are. And thousands of customers are getting it. So the 95% where it is not working is sometimes we slice things too thin, right? So let's take let's say in a 5,000 people organization, there is a one group that 30 people do something. And then I want to use an AI within that 30 people group, and I will save 3 people. Is it great? Sure. Or I'll get 3 people's work more optimized or automated. Sure, it's valuable. But you are in such a siloed area trying to do something when the opportunity is far larger. So take an example of one of our customer in supply chain. We created a process where AI agent balances inventory between their 32 warehouses and 385,000 items 4 times a day. Now, this is a process that you could never possibly do with human being. I mean, human beings are doing it once a month. This happens 4 times. The moment you convert it into an autonomous, you could do it as many times as you want. So
Yeah.
4 times a day. Saved $200 million in inventory cost. This was wastage on a shelf. Things were just staying on a shelf. These things are possible, and they have been possible for a while.
Yeah, so I get it, and I again, I've said this a few times this episode. I tend to be very optimistic, and I I didn't think that report was read accurately, but I did want to ask you about it. But like, let's look at what is it about the companies that are finding success with Automation Anywhere or automation with AI in general? What is different about their culture, their approach, their use cases that allows them to succeed where I'm sure some percent of AI pilots are failing?
So the various varieties of that you see, and I'm not in favor or against anything, but just sharing, because who knows, we are all learning in this process. But there are many science projects going on that says, what if I created my own LLM or I did something? And I think increasingly we are seeing that, I'm sure there are a few exceptions to those rules. But when we tried to create our own LLM, we saw that the general LLMs are progressing so fast
Mm,
that so think of general LLM as somebody with has a basic education of English and language and reasoning and math and whatever, something, right? It is better to take that general education and then advancing from that versus building from scratch anything, so I think those projects I'm sure there are unique places where but in most cases I don't think they would provide the return against the expenses. The second place is it's about speed of outcome. Again, if it is another 3-year IT projects, and we are familiar with many, it may not have the return.
yeah.
It is important for teams to demand, like in Petrobras, and credit goes to them, right? Because this kind of change management is led by companies and their leaders, and say, look, I know this is possible. I want to see it. I want to challenge everybody. And how can we get there? And so applying AI in these areas of specific processes, specific outcomes, and impacting businesses with those outcomes versus another IT project. I'm not against IT projects, but attaching it to outcomes is the key success.
Yeah. And I think maybe part of this, you tell me if you agree, this is all basically brand new. We're doing so much of the application of AI in enterprise for the first time. And so certainly a percentage of them are going to fail. I mean, you said science experiments. These are experiments. And not all experiments based on a hypothesis are going to be true and accurate and successful. And so I think maybe people that don't understand how to apply it, the best use cases currently, where the model capability edges are maybe surprised, disappointed when some of their experiments just don't work, whether it's the use case itself or the approach they took to solving the use case. What do you think about that?
So let me tell you this as a buyer, because I'm a buyer of AI as well. In our company, we use our AI everywhere, but we don't do everything well. So we use everything, we buy everything else that somebody does well. So here is my experience as a buyer of AI. Everybody, like if you are a company that provides you a data related software, they would say data is required for AI. If you are an advisor, you would advise me on how to do AI. If you are a system of record company, ERP, CRM, you would tell me that's this is the way to use it. So everybody is telling you how to use AI. I think what I've learned, and I'm hoping everybody benefits from it, is there is inherent conflict in the market, where if you are a system of record company and your revenue stream is based on a seat, you are not thinking about, because in reality, if you do 40% autonomous work, I don't need 40% of the seat, and I can completely transform how my work happens. So, and I think many other people have said this and say, okay, I don't need to do it the way you are telling me. I know you need to protect the revenue stream, but I don't need to go on that path. I can reimagine it. If you are an advisor and you want consulting dollars, this is a digital labor. I can do this very differently than how I did differently. So with each of the vendors, if you align yourself and think, okay, what I care about as a leader or as a company, I care about work getting done at a high quality, at a low cost, and all other things are just a byproduct. And so what is the fastest way to achieve it? So I would reassess all my vendors and say, where are my interests aligned? So if you think about us or Amazon and many other people, we don't really care about seats, or we just care about work getting done. Do as much autonomous as you like, assisted where required. We have no religion per se in any of them, right? So aligning to those and outcomes and processes and system, I think you need to rethink that and reimagine those possibilities. One of the things that we do with companies is we look at their current financials, and then the first conversation wherever we can have, we say, look, this is how you operate today by in your entire company. This is how you could operate with AI. In every function, in every process, detailed view of what that looks like, the new operating model. And the difference between this to here is $4 billion of value, or $2 billion, or 200 million, or say, look, step back, look at this. And it's everywhere. What do you want to do first?
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you about two products that you have. Your process reasoning engine and automation copilot.
Yeah.
Tell us what it is, what makes it unique, and how it differentiates from your competitors.
So the process reasoning engine is a piece that we've been working on for maybe over 3 years before we all came to know about ChatGPT, because we were intrigued by this underlying transformer model, and we're trying to see, could we create a very unique piece of product reasoning engine. So one of the unique asset we have, and I know before I joined, I heard you guys talk about where does your data come from and the origin of the data in different LLMs. We have a large metadata of how work happens, nothing identifiable to any customers or nothing specific. But we today run 400 million digital workers. Many of them are AI powered across 19 data centers and in private clouds. And a massive workload goes through our system. And so across all industries, we know something about work, arguably more than almost anybody. So that metadata about work is what we took last many years to train a reasoning engine on. And the challenge we gave ourselves is that can reasoning engine autonomously figure out most work that we do? Because it has a more collective experience of all the work. And 3 months ago, we reached a very monumental milestone where, and it was surprising for us as well, where we could give this reasoning engine virtually any complex work that many of us will consider hard or complicated. And it figured out, here are the 6 steps to get there. And because of our platform, I can talk to all of those things because we have all the technologies that can connect to all the systems you have. So it can connect dynamically and it can execute that work. So the fact that work can happen at a speed of command, verbal command, kind of things we have seen in science fiction, is here and now and available. That's process reasoning engine. If my prediction is right, virtually every enterprise vendor and company will need that process reasoning engine, because that's the secret sauce and the foundation of how all work will happen.
Interesting. So I know you generally serve the enterprise. Do you see a demand, a need for the small businesses of the world and what you provide as well? Or is that a different animal completely. Do you see a world where you serve those kind of small businesses as they try to adopt AI and automation?
So we serve them today, but through our partners and MSP providers. Because you know the small business does not have a skills to implement it, and even if we make it very easy to implement, um, they want the most simplest version possible at the lowest price possible. And so many of our partners, what they would do is take an example, one of our partners who serves various wealth advisors, thousands of them. Instead of us serving those few thousand wealth advisor, each of them 1 to 5 people team, they are all served by this partner who provides them at a cost and a value and a vertical agents that are unique to that industry. And so that's how we serve those customers. We have
Great,
specific
thanks.
solutions on this, and maybe 12 of those solutions that are served through MSP.
Makes sense. So one final question for you, and on this show we love predictions, because if our guests get the predictions wrong, we can follow up later with them and let them know.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, let's go 3 years out.
Okay.
What does work look like, and how has it changed most significantly?
So again, for a while we will live in dual world, right? Where for one part of the world the work will look very different, and some people wouldn't have fully moved there, so they are still operating the way we operate today. So let me describe what work looks like for people who have taken AI first approach, and reimagine how that happens. So I'm going to use an example that almost all of us can relate to. Think of your favorite science fiction. I'm a Star Trek fan, so I'm going to use an example. In Star Trek, Captain says, "Computer reconfigure deflector shield," and something else. You don't see a developer coming to a captain and saying, "Captain, what you just said takes 6 months." You don't hear IT coming to a captain and saying it's 2 months of provisioning. Instead, what happens is the work dynamically based on the verbal command. A workflow is created and it is executed right away. Does that sound familiar to what I just mentioned, process reasoning? And that's what happens in all the science fiction movies. Now, that's not the main part. The main part is that work is so entertaining that we watch people work. Can you imagine somebody watching us work? I can't. I can't imagine people watching us work.
People watch Matt work.
In a world where the work, and maybe not all of it, but work should be more entertaining. And the closer you get, it's more fulfilling day, right? If I spend 8 hours, and some of us maybe more than 8 hours spend working, why is it not some of it very entertaining? And there is something we can all relate to, whether you relate to productivity, margins, growth, but if our work is more entertaining. And I think partly I can tell you, I use AI every day, various tools, our technology. It has become more entertaining, more fulfilling. And so in 3 years, to answer your question, how many organizations have created huge value and benefit, and in process of doing that, have made work entertaining, fulfilling, exciting, and reimagined possibilities? Could we get 30, 50, 80% companies there? I wish we could. We'll find out how many move that fast.
Yeah. Well, look, Mihir, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you joining us today. Always nice to see the viewpoint from somebody that's on the cutting edge of automating. So yeah, thank you so much. You can find Automation Anywhere, automationanywhere.com. We'll throw it in the chat. Mihir, thank you so much for your time.
Glad to be here. And by the way, a big shout out to your podcast and live shows. I'm a big fan. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. All right. Kind of hybrid, pessimistic, optimistic, like lots of automation. People are going to have to change. Yeah, we're kind of getting the full spectrum of views on this episode.
Yeah, it's quite the variety. But I guess that should be suspected. It's
Yeah.
a hot topic these days. So I know we have something planned for this next segment. Do you wanna usher this in?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. So before we bring on our next guest, we want to do something a little fun. Um, over this week, Alex, our producer, had a little bit of fun, put me in different banana outfits because of Nano Banana, and I need a little bit of revenge, and I need your help. And so, more seriously, in celebration of Nano Banana taking the #1 spot across image editing, image generation leaderboards, including Ala Marina, we're going to do a little competition. Um, Alex, if you can have the headshots ready while I give the gist of this. So we're doing a little competition, and we're going to give you two different headshots: one of myself and one of producer Alex. Alex, if you could throw those up. Oh, that's not the headshot. That was the finished product. I see what you're doing there, though, Alex. Um, and yeah, you can find them on the Imager links in our Notion doc. And so we're going to share two headshots, not this one. Alex, if you could pull up the other one. But basically, what we want you to do is have fun, make them funny, take our headshots and make them as funny as you can. If it's banana related, great. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but we'll choose whichever one qualifies based on two factors. One, the funniest, whichever one makes us laugh, and then two, the best use of the technology. Try to use Nano Banana, and there's Alex's wonderful headshot, and then we'll also give you mine. Alex, if you can drop the two Imager links in chat, we'll also put it in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube. Grab those, come up with something funny, tag us at forward future. That's at forward_future_ on X. We'll also drop that in the chat here. And we'll choose the winner and give you a shout out next week on the show, and we'll show it off.
Yeah, and just a reminder, be nice, but don't be too nice.
Yeah, don't be too nice to Alex. He had his fun this week. No, but seriously, as long as you're not jerky, if it's funny, like, we love it. So we think that's going to be a fun little experiment. And Nick, maybe we're going to have to do you next week.
Yeah, fantastic. Great news. So with that, I actually have to leave, but the show must go on, of course. Really excited for this next guest. We got a lot of great questions lined up for this one, but Caleb Peffer from Firecrawl, co-founder, CEO, lots of exciting news to share, I'm sure. So enjoy.
All right, Alex. Yeah, thank you for taking my shot off. Nick, thanks for co-hosting with me today. See ya.
Of course.
See you next week. Okay, so our next guest, very, very excited to talk to him. I have been a user of Firecrawl for a while now. Surprisingly, almost like a lot of the time that they've been around. I thought they were a much older company just because I've seen them everywhere. So very excited to bring on Caleb. Caleb, co-founder and CEO of Firecrawl. Welcome to the show.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Hey, good to hear you. Good to see you. All right, so I want to talk a little bit, obviously, about Firecrawl and the origin story. Tell me, when you started Firecrawl, what was the idea behind it, and maybe what has it evolved into?
Well, when we started Firecrawl, we were scratching our own itch. We had built a tool called Mendable. I don't know if anyone in the stream is familiar with it. This is early 2023, before, basically right as ChatGPT came out. Everyone was trying to figure out what to do with this new technology, and we thought, hey, let's put a chatbot on a company's documentation, because we were running into context issues and people were getting hallucinations in ChatGPT. It's a funny story. We ended up powering the LangChain docs very early on. Sold it to customers like Snapchat, DoorDash, MongoDB, Coinbase. But at the end of the day, we were just developers trying to build something valuable with AI. And we always had a hunch that the more interesting solution would be building a developer tool that we would want to use, that we would want to build with. So over a year and a half of Mendable, we always had our eye out for what was a problem that really resonated with us. And after just banging our heads against the wall with web crawling, web scraping, really just taking any website and turning it into the data that we could use to help these companies, it became obvious that that was sort of a huge opportunity. We took the infrastructure we had worked so hard at Mendable on, built it into its own product over a weekend, and also released an open source repo. And almost immediately, we saw developers loving it. We got #1 on Hacker News, that got taken down because people on Hacker News were mad. And then we released it the next day. And since then, we've crossed 50,000 stars on GitHub. So we're in the top 400 GitHub repos of all time, have 350,000 developers on the platform working with amazing companies. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That's amazing. Yeah, I heard about Firecrawl and we started using it immediately. I've used a lot of crawlers, I should say, but Firecrawl was just like dead simple. And I think I caught it right when it was like felt very AI native. And so let's go into the depths a little bit. I want to talk about how agents interact with the web and how Firecrawl may be and will be powering that. So I think you have a really interesting vision. Can you explain the future or your vision for the future of the internet, where agents are really going to be the consumers and the synthesizers of the data on the web, and how Firecrawl may power that?
Absolutely. We're on level 1 right now. There's so much change coming. And when I envision the future, I just start to think about I'm a developer by trade, right? So like, I just love thinking about different ways technology can be used. I imagine AI researchers that are waiting for new papers to be released, new research, and then they're replicating it, and then they're building on top of that research. Businesses, products, right? Pieces of software that are constantly adapting to what's happening on the web and evolving themselves to make themselves better for their customers, their users. And many, many more. I mean, these are just a few of the things that I think AI is going to be capable with, and they all need access to the web, because the web is the most up-to-date, comprehensive source of human knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
With Firecrawl, our aim is to make that possible. It's to be that layer between AIs, eventually super intelligences, and this information, so that AI can make the lives, basically we're unlocking the web for AI, so AI can unlock abundance for humans.
Yeah, and like kind of taking that a step further, with all of the generative AI tools out there, I think we're going to see this skew in signal to noise ratio, where there's just going to be a ton of noise. And we're going to get to this point in which humans are just not able to filter all of the noise. And so you probably, this is at least what I believe, are going to have an agent as the filter on your behalf. And so there does need to be a really seamless way for agents to browse the web. And there isn't today. It's, we have some things like Perplexity Comet. We have like Operator. But most websites are still either blocking it or not serving it up in a way. And so is your vision to be that translation layer between the noise on the internet, your agent, and then finally your agent to the human?
Absolutely. You mentioned a few things that are really important. One is coverage. What developers and AI agents need is the ability to access all of the sites on the web in straightforward and upfront way. Then they need to be able to filter. So the 3 things that we see Firecrawl doing is finding information on the web via search, fetching that data, and then formatting and filtering that information. Yeah, exactly. It's not just about, and by the way, this is been our mission since day one. The thing that we did differently than other pre-existing crawlers and web access toolkits was we format it in Markdown. It's such a simple product decision, but that's what LLMs really like to ingest. In the future, it's not going to end there, right? Like, people want structured data. People want to filter out a whole lot more than just the HTML structure. They want to filter out irrelevant information, all of this noise that's going to be generated by AI agents creating information.
Yeah.
And we're just building on top of what our product does today by releasing what we call JSON motor extract. It actually allows you to, with a prompt, ask Firecrawl to give you the exact data that you're looking for and to format it exactly how you'd like.
Quick technical for you. Do you have any ear pods you can throw in? I'm having a little trouble with the audio.
Oh, yeah. Let me quickly pull.
I'll give you a sec while you're doing that, if you don't mind. Yeah, so I definitely want to continue this conversation around what agents kind of infiltrating the internet look like. So while you get that set up, I'm going to talk. Yeah.
How does this sound? Is this better?
Yeah.
Cool. I think this should be fine. Let me know if there are any other issues.
Oh, a little bit. Check the drop down where you can see the input sources and make sure it's the right one.
No?
I think maybe just leaning forward is helpful.
I'll lean forward. Will do. Better?
Okay. All right. So let's continue on that conversation then. Like, as agents start to be the primary consumer of the internet and synthesize the internet for its human counterpart, do you think we're like at risk for similar echo chamber situations in which, like, we saw on social media? So basically, the algorithm was reinforcing what people already wanted to see, sometimes reinforcing fear, anger. When we have AI agents browsing the web on our behalf, we're putting an immense amount of trust in those agents. And then, like, is there this situation in which we kind of fall down the same the same problems that we saw with social media?
Great question. AI is an amplifier of human nature. I think what we've seen so far is that these LLMs are extremely aligned to what the humans that are using them want. That's why we find them so useful. That's why GPT 3.5, or ChatGPT, as most people remember it, was so much more useful than the previous models, because it was instruction tuned to do what we as humans wanted it to. And that's going to unlock so many, frankly, amazing things. I mean, we've already started to see them, right? Like, who doesn't love the fact that they can ask ChatGPT for help on so many different things? On the other hand, of course, that is going to amplify human nature. It is going to amplify the darker sides of human nature. People are going to, unfortunately, misuse these technologies or misunderstand these technologies. And I think that's a real challenge that we're going to have to face head on. And I'm not entirely sure what the solution is, but at least on a personal level, you can combat this yourself because you can use the technology differently. You can, for example, LLMs have one of the most common problems I hear is like the sycophancy problem, where basically LLM will just say, like, "You're right, you're great, good job." And of course,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, they're trained to do this, right? They want to make you feel good. But something I would suggest too is when you are building prompts, and everyone should have a list of their own system prompts with Claude projects or ChatGPT projects or your own custom chatbot, whatever you use. Make sure to have prompts that you explicitly ask to question your beliefs and to say no. And if you do that, you're already, you're ahead of the game, right? It's going to make you, it's going to give you the ability to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to translate, teach other people around you, right? Like, show them the limitations of the technology, and hopefully as a society, we adapt to these problems over time. I'm very optimistic that we will, but there are going to be challenges.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're seeing frontier model labs start to implement in the model personality to push back more, to question more, rather than just to agree with everything. Obviously, GPT-4o had the sycophancy issue. They learned their lesson on that one, and I have personally felt GPT-5 definitely pushes back much more, and I appreciate that. Not just in the AI I use, but in my relationships, my friends, my loved ones, the like that. It is, I like being questioned. I don't want to be surrounded by yes men, right? It's like the recipe for disaster. So I agree completely there. Another topic I wanted to touch on with you, and this is something that you're thinking deeply about, is what the future of monetization looks like. And so let me just paint a picture real quick. As agents continue to increase their visibility on the web, increasingly browse the web on my behalf, traditional publishers, which monetize via eyeballs and advertising, um, the direct eyeball is going away, right? Because an agent is going to either go get, let's just use a very simple example. It's going to go get an article for me, bring it back to me, and I'm going to read it. Or it's going to go get an article, synthesize it, and then I'm going to read that synthesis. And so in both of those scenarios, my actual eyes are not reaching the web page. Thus, there's no advertisement, there's no CPM, and the business model explodes. And so I think you guys are thinking deeply about that. Tell us how you're thinking about that, and tell us, like, what does the future monetization model on the web look like when agents are everywhere?
It's a great question. And it's a complicated one. We're not entirely sure how things are going to land, but here is how we're thinking about it. You're exactly right. Advertising is going to change on the web. And for advertisers, I think this can be really scary. The term is Google Zero. It's this moment when all of a sudden Google is no longer sending you traffic and you're no longer able to monetize that traffic with ads. You're no longer getting eyeballs. I think the good thing about this is, yes, advertising revenue is slowly, it's at least going to change. It's not going to be the same as it was in the past. But on the flip side, a lot of this information on the web, if it's high quality and unique, is extremely valuable to AI agents.
Yeah.
Because this is it, from my perspective as a, I'm running a company that helps developers get information, and I can see the demand. We're growing so quickly because developers are ravenous to give their AI access to this information. And I think that's really where things go. Publishers of content, well, yes, it is a moment of change, I think are in many cases sitting on top of gold mines of data that can be used to power all sorts of valuable applications. And instead of monetizing through advertising, they can monetize by providing these AI systems the information they need to run and the data they need to run. So I have a very optimistic view, and I think this is going to look similar to how in the early days of music. Publisher, I would say some publisher or some music publishers were afraid of their CDs being ripped and put online because they just equated that to a threat to the way that they made money, which is selling CDs. And of course, now you look back, it's like that actually opened up the next 10, 20 years of revenue for them. It allowed them to reach a much wider audience. And I think the same trend is going to happen here. And it's just a matter of, one, providing the tools and the marketplaces that are built well enough that they can actually cycle value through the system, and also educating both publishers and developers about what the standards are, how to access content respectfully, and then also giving publishers the tools that they need to monetize this content.
Yeah, and so let's assume all of a sudden, and this is a massive problem, but let's assume the problem of agent/user can pay a publisher directly. Now, obviously, that cuts out advertisers. Where do advertisers go? They still want their products in front of human eyes. Maybe they want it in front of agent eyes. Like, what does that even look like?
I think the most common way people are going to decide how they buy products is by going to ChatGPT, Anthropic, DeepSeek.
Agreed. I do that today.
Yeah. And they're going to say, what should I do? And because as a business owner, right, like we are also advertisers. The way I'm thinking about this is how can I get as much content about my product as possible so that I can convince the LLMs out there that I'm the best product for their users. So I think that there will still be advertising. It's going to shift. It's going to change. The places that advertising happens are going to change. And what you said, I think, is really wise. Really, it's poignant. You aren't going to be advertising to humans directly, but you're going to be advertising to these LLMs. You're going to want them to train on parts of your website because them training on your website means they know you exist and they can tell their users about you.
Yeah.
That's where I think things are going. And there's a lot that needs to be figured out. The specifics have to be mapped.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a ton of nuance there because so we can think about it as like SEO versus CPC, right? So there's going to be this like, how do I make my website most visible to Firecrawl and thus agents? And then there's going to be, hey, I want to pay more and I want to show up higher in the quote unquote results, which would be a ChatGPT response. Now that would require ChatGPT to accept advertising. Then, I think they've hinted that they might do it in the future. I think in the early days, Sam Altman was very much like, no, we don't like that model. But I think like inevitably to offer a free service to the vast majority of the planet, you do have to give a free service with advertising as the monetization model. So I think like it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I personally would rather pay than see ads, but I can pay, and I think a lot of the world might not want to or can't pay for that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. What would you prefer? Would you rather pay and not see ads?
So this is an interesting question right now because people are already, if you look at Google, right, over the past 10, 15 years, never had a paid offering. People thought the idea of Google having a paid search tier was insanity. And today, every major LLM provider requires you to have a subscription.
Yeah.
Some of them are expensive, right? Like I pay for ChatGPT Pro and I pay for everything, right? So I think these models are so useful to humans that these LLM providers or AI companies in general, whether on the application layer or they're on the model layer, are going to be able to charge for access to these AIs. And they're also probably going to be able to do advertising. I don't know where the breakdown is. I'd personally prefer to just have the AI not feed me products that were paid, actually find me the best thing.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some gradient. Some people are going to choose free with ads. Some people are going to choose paid, and that's okay.
Yeah, totally. They should offer the spectrum of options. Personally, I would have paid for Google search for years now if I can just not have any advertising. I just wanted the clean, give me your organic results. I would have totally paid for that, but now I go to ChatGPT and I do pay. All right, so I want to talk about something that happened this week, and hopefully you saw it. But Browserbase and Cloudflare got together and released some standards. Alex, if you can bring that up on screen, that'd be great. And basically, let me see if we can get that on screen. And it's basically for agents to prove that they're quote unquote good agents. And some in the industry, including Gary Tan of Y Combinator, you guys went through YC, said that this is a bad thing for the web and agents. And so here it is, Paul Klein for Browserbase. Today, we're announcing an unlikely partnership. We believe that agents need reliable, responsible web access. That's why we're partnering with Cloudflare in support of WebBot Auth and signed agents, a new standard to allow good bots to authenticate themselves. And so we're already seeing a lot of websites just block agents completely, whether it's kind of historical from blocking scrapers. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Is this a good thing? Is this like Cloudflare becomes the police of the internet? What's your take? Is it good to have standards? Is it a good starting point? What do you think?
It's clear that a standard needs to be created. I just don't know if this one's it. I think there needs to be some sort of moderation there. their publishers or content creators do need to have some way to control what is the end use case of their content. But if it's public, I think you run into real issues where you're talking about something that's in the public domain. And it's basically an ethical, philosophical question that is not easy to wrangle with. I think it's pretty clear that Cloudflare and these players are making a business move, and they want to be the police because they want to take a cut. And I don't necessarily think that is what's best for the web, but I also appreciate the fact that they're trying. So it's we'll see how things play out over the next few years and which standards and which models actually end up working to balance the needs of AI agents that need to access data and content creators.
Yeah, I mean, look, standards are really good. Open standards are even better. Here's Gary Tan's response. Cloudflare browser-based axis of evil was not on my bingo card for 2025. Legalize AI agents. I don't necessarily think it's this severe. And then Alex, there's another tweet in Notion, if you can bring that up. It's highlighted as bad thing for the web, where it goes a little bit more deeply into the nuance of this. Again, I think an open standard for agents to be able to authenticate themselves on behalf of a human is actually really important. So here's Karthik. It's a step in the right direction in principle, but I think Cloudflare becoming a de facto registry trust anchor in this case is what's concerning. It has so many parallels to SSL TLS certificates for websites, but we have ICANN DNS that maintains the canonical registry of legit sites, unlike in this case. Martin Casado from A16Z says, okay, I finally get it. And they kind of continue on back and forth. It's an interesting conversation. We'll drop it in the chat. But it just seems like, yeah, this is like generally the right direction. I think we need more buy-in from the industry. But like right now, there are so many bottlenecks to getting agents to browse the web. This would help in theory, right?
A standard would help in theory, but I think an open standard is crucial. And I don't think it should be tied to, I don't think that Cloudflare should be taking a cut for this.
And elaborate on that. When you say taking a cut, what is the monetization play there?
They've opened up a sort of pay-per-crawl program, which is essentially, the idea is that AI agents that are accessing the web can pay on a per page basis for information that they're accessing. In theory, I think this is a great approach. And I actually like some of the things they did. For example, they pulled back the 402 error code and used this as a way to indicate that a page requires payment to crawl. There's a few things that I think could go wrong with this. One is, once again, isn't there a way to open up a direct relationship with the publisher and pay them? Do you really need to give Cloudflare middleman access in this world? I'm not sure. The second piece that is interesting is it doesn't handle subscriptions. Right. I think a lot of the content on the web that's really valuable is already gated behind subscriptions between a user and a content creator.
Like if I have a subscription to, the New York Times, Washington Post, whatever it is.
Right, exactly.
I was going to take that into account.
I think that's actually the information it's much more, a lot of the free content on the web is actually SEO. Like, this is, by the way, there was a lot of controversy because Cloudflare by default turned on the blocking of AI agents, which also by default turned off a lot of indexing and search engines. And it hurt your AI SEO strategy. And customers didn't realize that. I think that there's an initial reaction, right? Because we're in the early days and people they're just afraid. They're afraid that their content's going to be taken and some big model is going to be trained and they're going to be left out in the dark. And that fear is valid. right? I think you as a creator of content want to be fairly compensated for that, and you should. That doesn't mean we should say that every piece of content on the web now is behind a paywall, or now you have to pay a few cents per crawl. And there's just a lot of nuance here that we need to explore. But I do appreciate that they're moving and they're trying to solve the problem. I want to make that very, very clear.
Yeah.
I think it's a great first step, and a lot of stuff is going to evolve out of it.
So Caleb, last question for you. Imagine you're a website owner. Imagine you're a publisher. What are the steps you're taking today to start to position yourself for this new web, for the web where agents are going to be the primary consumer and synthesizer of your content? What is it? Is it like technical steps? Are there promotional, cultural steps? What do you think that is? How do people get ready for Firecrawl?
I think you need to go to your organization and start to, you need to address the core fear. At the end of the day, this is a moment of change, and change is scary. And we've talked to lots of publishers, and what we kind of see is this: there's sort of a break in these organizations where some people understand that monetizing AI agent traffic is the biggest revenue opportunity that these organizations have over the next 10 years. They see that. And then the other side sees the risk, but what we have right now is going away, and that fear, it doesn't help, because instead of actually exploring the options out there with open eyes, you get defensive and you try and attack. And what we're going to see, in my opinion, is over the next 5 years, the organizations that have an AI monetization strategy are experimenting with lots of different options, finding the ones that work best for them, and are really open to moving into the next 10 years, the next era, are going to be very successful. And frankly, the ones that don't, in the long term, are going to be like publishers that leaned into CD-ROMs.
Yeah.
So if you're one of the people on that camp of let's move to the future, like, be understanding, but also try and champion what you believe the future is going to be.
Yeah, it definitely feels like echoes of the past with MP3s and book publishers with Kindle, web, like literally publishers with web scraping on Google and just showing us a little snippet on Google search. So it just seems like lean into the technology, discover new ways to monetize, discover new ways to license, and that is the way to success.
And one thing I'd like to add is we've been pleasantly surprised with how receptive publishers are to exploration, to looking at new models. And I think that because this is, history does not repeat, but it rhymes. Yeah. And this has happened quite a few times. People do understand that a change is coming and are looking for ways to do it. Of course, with some, they want it to work for them, and we want to help them get there.
All right, Caleb, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a super, super fascinating conversation. Let's say thanks to Caleb. Firecrawl.dev if you want to check it out. I use it. Go try it out. Caleb, thanks again.
Thanks, Matthew. Talk soon.
See you next time. All right, so we're coming up on the end of the show. Just want to say thank you to everybody who watched this live. Another thing I wanted to re-mention, again, we're doing that little competition. We're going to drop the imager links to both my headshot as well as producer Alex's headshot. Go have fun with them. Tag us at forward_future_. We'll drop that in the chat as well. Whoever has the most creative and best use of technology without being a jerk about it, right? Just make them fun, make them funny. Then we'll choose you. We'll give you a shout out next week. I want to thank our guests, Dr. Derya Unutmaz, professor at the Jackson Laboratory. Follow him on Twitter at DeryaTR_. Mihir Shukla, CEO of Automation Anywhere. Go check out automationanywhere.com. And Caleb, CEO and co-founder of Firecrawl.dev. And thank you again. Go check out Forward Future AI for our newsletter. Thank you to my co-host, Nick Wentz. Thank you to Alex for producing and making everything seamless behind the scenes. I will see you guys next week.